Hey everyone, ready to dive into some serious goal-setting action?
Always.
Well, today we're tackling Brian Tracy's 14-step goal-setting guide.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and this PDF, it doesn't mess around. It promises to help you achieve everything you want faster than you thought possible.
I gotta say, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I can see why. It's a bold claim, but hey, maybe he's onto something.
Right. And it's Brian Tracy. This guy's a big-time author, speaker. You know, he's not just some random internet guru.
Exactly. He definitely knows a thing or two about success, and he actually walks the walk. There's a story in the guide he talks about writing down 10 goals and achieving most of them within a month.
Wow, within a month. That's incredible.
Right, it really shows the power of setting intentions. But okay, let's break down these 14 steps.
Yeah, let's get into it. Step 1 is crystallize your desires.
Okay, so this is where things get interesting. Tracy basically wants you to imagine, no limitations.
Like win the lottery, no limitations. Even bigger. He wants you to think about your perfect life, perfect income, family, health, even your net worth. You describe it all in detail.
So it's like a super detailed vision board, but just, written out.
Yeah, kind of, but it's deeper than that. This whole idealization thing, it forces you to really confront what you truly desire.
Not just what you think is possible.
Exactly. It's about unearthing that raw ambition. And then he throws in this quick list method.
Oh yeah, I saw that. What's that about?
It's pretty simple. You just quickly jot down your 3 most important goals right now. No overthinking, just whatever pops into your head.
I like that. It's like cutting through the noise.
Right. And those goals that surface, those are usually the ones that really matter. Okay, so you've got those deep desires, those quick list goals. Now steps 2 and 3 are write it down and set a deadline.
Writing it down, that seems simple enough.
It is, but you'd be surprised how many people skip this step. And honestly, if you don't write it down, it's easy to forget about it.
Like it's not real.
Exactly. But setting deadlines, that's where some people get tripped up.
Yeah, deadlines can be a little intimidating. Like you're setting yourself up for failure if you don't meet them.
I get that. But think of deadlines as more like guides, not like hard and fast rules.
Okay, I could see that.
They create a sense of urgency,
Yeah.
which is good. It helps keep you motivated and on track.
Makes sense. But what if you miss a deadline?
Then you adjust it,
Yeah.
set a new one. And the important thing is to keep moving forward.
Right, that takes the pressure off a little bit. So step 4 is the theory of constraints. That sounds a little complex.
Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. It's all about identifying the one thing, like the biggest thing, holding you back from achieving your goal.
Okay, so is it like a lack of resources?
Maybe, but it could also be a skill you need to develop, or even a fear you need to overcome. It's different for everyone.
So it's about getting specific.
Exactly. You have to pinpoint the problem before you can solve it.
And that's where the 80-20 rule comes in, right? I remember reading about that.
Yes. And it's a game changer. So 80% of the constraints we face are actually internal. Things like limiting beliefs, lack of knowledge, those kinds of things.
Only 20% are external factors.
Right. So it's really about focusing on what we can control.
Our own mindset and skill set, that's actually pretty empowering.
Absolutely. And once you've identified that constraint, well, then it's time to get skillful, which brings us to step 5.
Okay, let's talk about skills.
So Tracy says that your income is directly related to your weakest key skill.
Oh, interesting. I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah, it makes you think, right? So the question he poses is, what one skill, if you developed it and did it in an excellent fashion, would have the greatest positive impact on your life?
That's a good question. What would that skill be for you?
Honestly, I'm always working on my communication skills, like being able to articulate my ideas clearly and persuasively. How about you?
That's a good one. For me, I think it would be time management.
Oh yeah, that's huge. If you can master that, it frees up so much time and energy for other things.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got our goals, we've identified our constraints, we're working on our skills. What's next?
Well, step 6 is all about building your network.
Okay, networking. That makes sense. You can't achieve big goals alone, right?
Right. We need support, we need guidance, we need people to collaborate with.
So it's all about who you know.
Well, it's more than that. Tracy actually talks about being a go-giver, not just a go-getter.
What's the difference?
Being a go-getter is all about, what can you get from other people? But being a go-giver, it's about how you can help them.
So it's about building genuine relationships, not just transactional ones.
Exactly. And those genuine relationships, they're the ones that will really help you in the long run.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got a good network in place. What are steps 7 and 8?
All right, here's where the real work begins. Step 7 is list it out, and step 8 is make a plan.
So it's getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, basically. You take those big goals and you break them down into smaller, actionable steps.
This is a lot of list making.
It is. But it's worth it, because once you have that list, you can start organizing it by priority. You can figure out the sequence of steps.
I can see how that would be helpful. It's like creating a roadmap.
Exactly. And research actually shows that having a plan can increase your chances of achieving your goals by like tenfold.
Tenfold. Wow, that's incredible.
Right. So planning is key. And then we move on to step 9, schedule your success.
Okay, that sounds pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, it's about actually putting those action steps into your calendar, blocking out time to work on them.
So it's not just about having a plan, it's about making time for it.
Exactly. And Tracy has this great quote. He says, "Each minute spent in planning saves 10 minutes in execution."
So true.
Right. It's all about being proactive.
Okay, so we've got our plan, it's scheduled. What's next?
Well, step 10 is where we learn to say no to distractions.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But it's important. Tracy calls it single handling, which basically means focusing on one task at a time until it's completely done.
So no more multitasking?
Well, it depends. Some people can multitask effectively, but for most of us, it actually decreases our productivity.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely guilty of that.
Me too. But when you can really focus on one thing at a time, you get so much more done. And the quality of your work is better too.
Okay, I'm convinced. Single handling it is. So we've covered a lot of ground already. We've got our goals, we've got our plan. We're focused and ready to take action. What else does Brian Tracy have in store for us?
Well, the next few steps are where things get really interesting. We're going to dive into the power of visualization, tapping into your superconscious mind, and even defining your major definite purpose.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It is, but it's also incredibly powerful.
I can't wait to hear more.
Well, you'll have to stay tuned for the next episode.
That's right. We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into Brian Tracy's 14-step goal-setting guide. Don't miss it.
See you then. All right, so remember where we left off? We were about to get into the really fun stuff.
Yeah, the superconscious mind and all that. I'm still a little fuzzy on that.
Okay, well, let's start with step 11, visualization.
Okay, I've heard of that before.
Right, but Tracy takes it to a whole new level. It's not just about, like, picturing your goal. It's about really experiencing it in your mind.
Like all the senses, the feelings, everything.
Exactly. You want to feel those emotions, like excitement, gratitude, pride.
Okay, but I have to ask, doesn't that seem kind of, I don't know, like wishful thinking?
I see what you mean. But here's the thing, it's not just daydreaming, right? It's about creating such a vivid mental picture that your brain starts to believe it's possible.
So it's like tricking your brain into working towards it.
In a way, yeah, because when you can see and feel that goal, it creates a powerful motivation.
That makes sense. And you're saying something about the superconscious mind.
Yeah, so step 12 is activate your superconscious. Basically, when you combine these clear goals with visualization, it activates this deeper level of awareness.
Okay. Can you explain that a little more? I'm still not quite getting it.
Think of it like this. Your superconscious mind. It's this incredible resource that's always working behind the scenes.
Okay, I'm listening.
And when you give it clear instructions, like these goals and visualizations, it starts to figure out how to make them happen. It can solve problems in ways you wouldn't even consciously think of.
So it's like our intuition.
Yeah, kind of like that.
That's pretty cool. So, okay, we're visualizing, we're tapping into our superconscious. Step 13 is a goal-setting exercise, right?
Right.
What's involved in that?
So now it's time to actually put pen to paper.
Back to the lists.
You got it. So Tracy has you write down at least 10 goals.
10. Wow.
But there's a catch. You have to write them in a specific way. It has to start with I, and then an action verb in the present tense.
So not I want to, but I am.
Exactly. Because when you write it like that, it's like you're already claiming it.
I like that. It's powerful.
Right. It's shifting your mindset from wanting to having.
So we've got our 10 goals all written out in the present tense. What's next?
Well, now it's time to choose your major definite purpose.
Major definite purpose. That sounds important.
It is. This is step 13, and it's all about identifying the one goal that will have the biggest positive impact on your life.
So it's like the ultimate goal.
Exactly. The one that if you achieve it, everything else kind of falls into place.
Okay. How do you choose that? Like, how do you know which goal is the most important?
Well, you got to think about that ideal life you visualized earlier, right?
Right.
Which goal is most central to that vision? That's your major definite purpose.
Okay, that makes sense. But what happens after you choose it?
Then you go back to all the previous steps, but this time your focus is laser sharp. Deadlines, constraints, planning, everything is geared towards achieving this one goal.
So it's like a choose your own adventure book for your life.
That's a great way to put it. You pick the path, but once you do, you commit to it fully.
I like that analogy. And that brings us to step 14, the last one.
The simplest yet most important step: never give up.
Persistence, right?
Yep. Tracy emphasizes that every time you overcome an obstacle, it builds character, builds self-esteem. Eventually, you become, as he says, unstoppable.
But it's not always easy to stay motivated,
Oh, I totally agree. Life throws us curveballs, we get distracted, we lose sight of our goals sometimes, but that's where the real work comes in.
So how do we stay on track? Like, what are some practical tips for maintaining that motivation?
Well, one thing I find helpful is celebrating the small wins. Every time you achieve a milestone, no matter how small, acknowledge it. Give yourself credit.
That's a good point. It's easy to get so focused on the end goal that we forget to enjoy the journey.
Exactly. And another thing that helps me is connecting my goals to my values.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean by that?
Well, when I'm working towards something that's truly meaningful to me, something that aligns with my core values, it just feels more fulfilling.
Yeah, it's not just about achieving success for the sake of success. It's about making a difference, living a life that's true to yourself.
Exactly. And when you have that kind of purpose driving you, it's much easier to stay motivated even when things get tough.
So what are those times when we hit a wall? When we're feeling stuck, unmotivated, like we're just not making progress.
Oh, I've been there so many times. For me, it often helps to revisit my why. Like, why did I set this goal in the first place? What am I hoping to achieve?
Sometimes we just need that reminder, right?
Yeah, sometimes we lose sight of the bigger picture. And sometimes it's just about shaking things up a bit.
What do you mean?
Maybe try a new approach, experiment with a different strategy. Even just changing up your environment can help.
I like that. A change of scenery can do wonders for the creative juices.
Exactly. And never underestimate the power of connection. Talk to friends, family, mentors. Find people who support your goals and who can offer encouragement and advice.
That's so important. Having a support system makes a huge difference. And it reminds me of something we talked about earlier, accountability.
Ah, yes, accountability is key. It's like having a built-in cheerleader and a coach.
Someone to keep you on track and celebrate your wins with you.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything formal. It could just be a friend, a family member, or even an online community of people who are working towards similar goals.
Yeah, the important thing is to have someone you can rely on, someone who will support you and hold you accountable.
Absolutely. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. We've explored all 14 steps, talked about visualization, the superconscious mind, persistence, and so much more. I feel like I've got a whole new perspective on goal setting now.
Me too. And I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to take action and start achieving their dreams.
Absolutely, because as Brian Tracy says, goals are the fuel and the furnace of achievement.
So true. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Brian Tracy's 14-step goal-setting guide. Thanks for joining us.
And remember, the journey to achieving your goals starts with a single step.
So take that step today.
Until next time, keep diving deep. All right, so we've covered a lot with these 14 steps, from the big picture stuff to the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah, it's been a pretty deep dive.
It has. But, even with the best plan, sometimes it's hard to actually enjoy the process,
Oh, I totally get that. It's easy to get so caught up in achieving the goal that we forget to savor the journey.
Exactly. So how do we avoid that? How do we make sure we're not just white knuckling it to the finish line?
Oh, I think one key is celebrating those small wins along the way. Every time you achieve a milestone, no matter how small, take a moment to acknowledge it, celebrate it.
That's a good point. It's like giving yourself permission to enjoy the process.
Exactly. And another thing that helps me is connecting my goals to my values.
Oh, that's interesting. How do you do that?
Well, for me, it's about making sure that the goals I'm setting are aligned with what's truly important to me. My core values, my beliefs, the things that give my life meaning.
So it's not just about achieving success for the sake of success.
Right. It's about creating a life that feels authentic and fulfilling. And when you're working towards something that you truly believe in, it makes it so much easier to stay motivated.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But, even with the best intentions, there are always going to be those times when our motivation dips, right?
Oh, absolutely. We all hit those slumps, those moments of doubt, those times when we just feel like giving up.
So what do we do when that happens?
Well, for me, it often helps to revisit my why. Why did I set this goal in the first place? What am I hoping to achieve? What's the bigger picture I'm working towards?
It's like reminding yourself of the reason behind the goal.
Exactly. And sometimes it's just about shaking things up a bit, maybe try a new approach, experiment with a different strategy, or even just change up your environment a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes a little change can make a big difference.
It can. And don't underestimate the power of connecting with other people. Talk to friends, family, mentors, or even other people who are working towards similar goals. Share your struggles, celebrate your wins, and learn from each other's experiences.
There's definitely strength in numbers.
There is. And it reminds me of something else we talked about earlier, accountability.
Ah, yes, accountability. So important. It's like having a built-in support system to keep you on track.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything formal, It could just be a friend, a family member, or even an online community of people who are working towards similar goals.
The important thing is to have someone you can rely on, someone who will support you and hold you accountable.
Absolutely. Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into Brian Tracy's 14-step goal-setting guide.
It does. We've covered a lot of ground today, from crystallizing your desires and setting clear deadlines to visualizing your success and building a strong network of support.
And most importantly, we talked about the importance of persistence, celebrating those small wins and staying connected to your why.
Exactly. It's been a really insightful conversation.
I agree. And I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to take action and start achieving their dreams.
Me too. Because as Brian Tracy says, the key to success is to focus our conscious mind on the things we desire, not the things we fear.
So true. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us.
And until next time, keep diving deep.